Imagine it's 4 a.m. and I've been binge watching YouTube for the last 8 hours. I've got this pit in my stomach and I just feel absolutely disgusted in myself because I haven't been facing the pain and I haven't been doing the things that I said I would. And what happens is I hit this breaking point where I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I get angry and pretty much put the phone down and then start doing the things that I know I should be doing. And this fear and this anger, they get me to do the right thing, or which is to do the habits that I want to do, to actually take care of myself because I don't want to feel this pain anymore. And that fear really works. But then after a few days of doing these habits and feeling this anger within myself, I get over it. I don't feel as afraid anymore. I forget what it's like to feel that fear. I forget what it's like to feel that pain. So what do you think happens? A few days go by and then the cycle begins again. This fear starts building up again. This anger starts building up again. And then I hit another breaking point and then I decide to change again. And this cycle just continues and continues and keeps repeating, where I'm never quite insecure or afraid enough to change, but I'm never also satisfied enough to be happy with what I have. And I think this is a cycle that probably a lot of you watching are familiar with. It's just a cycle of not being afraid or not being in enough pain to want to change. And you're in this awkward limbo phase where everything is just, it's not horrible, but it's not good. But in the grand scheme of things, it keeps getting worse and worse, subtly and subtly. And what do you do if you're at this point, pretty much? Is it because you don't want to change enough? So I'm here to basically say that that's not the case. When I was going through these cycles, I didn't really understand why I wasn't changing, because I was in a lot of pain, but I just wasn't changing. And I looked into it a little bit and I kind of understood it from a spiritual level, from the different levels of consciousness and what actually leads a person to change. There's a way to transmute this anger and this fear and these desires and these lower level consciousness states. So initially it starts with a lot of shame, starts with a lot of fear, and that fear then turns into anger. You kind of say, I'm not going to let myself be like this anymore. And then you transform it into courage. From anger, you can actually go to courage. And once you start facing yourself and you start appreciating the fact that you've been facing the pain, that turns into courage, which is a much, much stronger form of motivation and change than anger. And then from courage, if you get to the level of acceptance, which is just allowing things to be as they are, this is where the most radical change in your life will start to occur. When you start accepting the things that come your way, you will change faster than anything you've seen before. Like the motivations of fear, anger, and desire have nothing on acceptance. Acceptance will take you where you need to go at the fastest speed possible. So most of us base our entire existence on fear. And so fear is the motivator that we've known. And a lot of people find success with fear. However, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you're one of those people who hasn't found success with fear as a motivator. It's not enough for you to justify facing the pain. Being afraid, maybe you're not insecure enough, or maybe you just don't feel that pain deeply enough to motivate you. And this isn't a bad thing. If anything, I'd argue this is a good thing, because a lot of people that I've seen that have kind of succeeded based on the motivation of fear, then have a lot of trouble letting go of that fear later on. Like, let's say you become like a very wealthy businessman using fear as the motivation. Then what happens is you're going to change your worldview in a way where fear has gotten you everything you want. So you're just going to want to keep stoking that fear. Every time you're not getting what you want, essentially you're going to tell yourself, oh, I just don't want it enough. I need to feel that desire. I need to feel that fear. However, if you're watching this video, you might not be able to achieve things in that way, which again, like I said, I think it's a good thing in the long run. But you need to really understand these higher consciousness levels of acceptance, of courage, of love even, which love is even higher than acceptance. And that is when you're doing things for pretty much the sake of just love, for the sake of the betterment of just everyone, basically. And that is just an unlimited source of energy at that point and motivation. And the difference between fear and love and acceptance and even courage is when you're doing things out of fear and the motivation is fear, it's really effortful. When you're doing it out of acceptance, life becomes easy. It becomes easier to change. There's way, way less resistance. And initially, these things are quite hard to grasp and hard to implement. And the initial parts of kind of moving into courage, especially from anger, moving into courage, can be quite difficult. But once you make the jump, just as how you have downward spirals of negative emotions, which I'm sure most of us are familiar with, where you get into a rut and you spiral down, once you get to about acceptance, this starts to work in the exact opposite direction. You start spiraling upwards and you just keep accepting and surrendering more and more and more. And things just seem to keep getting better and better. And it's something that I hadn't experienced for pretty much my whole life up until recently, a couple weeks ago, where I really just kind of made that shift and I started just spiraling up and up. And now life just seems to be getting better and better. And that subtle worry about, oh no, things are going well. What if they don't go well? Starts to disappear as well, which is something I'm sure you guys have experienced, where you feel like, oh, things are going too well. Like I'm scared and I'm holding on to what is good, and I'm not letting new things to appear, basically. And that kind of sensation has kind of dimmed more and more as time has gone on, where now there's a feeling of like just acceptance. No matter if a good thing or a bad thing happens, it's all welcome and all of it will lead me where I want to go. And it just all starts by just going from anger and fear all the way to courage and acceptance. And a lot of self-love is needed in this process. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. Hope these insights helped you guys in some way. I know they really, really helped me, and pretty much I've just experienced this as well. So if you have any questions of how that shift exactly happened, feel free to comment them down below.